Speaker Mike Johnson says Republicans are on track to pass President Trump's tax and spending bill by a July 4th deadline, but the House and Senate are still facing challenges over potential changes to the bill. Join us now, former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. He's the chairman of the Alpha Institute. He walked in here whistling. I mean, he's in such a good mood. It's
I'm always happy. Come on.
You're
great to be an American.
Years ago.
And Becky immediately said, well, you're not, this isn't your problem right now. But you said the problems are all manageable, and you're very... are you just being a Republican now and just...
Not at all.
A homer?
Look, not Republican, not Democrat, just a person that for the last 20 years managed big bills. They have to vote for it, okay? If they vote against it, they're raising taxes. So it's going to get done. If you want the inside of the timing of when it will get done, it will all be driven by the debt ceiling. Everybody will argue they want to change something, but they know when the debt ceiling hits, they can't play around anymore.
But that suggests they're not going to hit the July 4th date that the president would like to have them hit.
No, but I'm going to tell you this. The House would still be debating it if it was left up to the House members. It was President Trump who they brought in, and I thought he was the best I've watched him. He told the SALT people, you're done. You got enough. He told the Freedom Caucus, stop it. And they voted on it in 2 days, and people a day before said, I'm not going to vote for it. They all lined up. The same thing will happen in the Senate.
I was going to say, we've had some pretty outspoken Republican senators who have said, I'm absolutely not voting for this. Can you have that same sway with them?
Yes. Let's take an example. You had Senator Johnson being very strong. Then he goes to the White House the next day. Look, I want the president to be successful. I'm going to be better about this.
Did he get to Rand Paul yet?
Did
he get to Rick Scott
yet? Rand Paul's never going to vote for it.
Okay.
Rick Scott's going to vote for this thing. But they want to tweak it. They're in the mix of passing it out of the Senate, so they want as much leverage as they can. And for the first time in modern history, the Senate majority is larger than the House.
Yeah.
So what Speaker Johnson needs to be doing is not let the Senate change it so much, because he's got a challenge with it coming back.
Well, who's he going to talk to, Thune? What do you mean, Speaker Johnson has to make the Senate not change it that much?
No, but you got to make the case before. If you take these certain things, this could cause me real problems.
He was on last week too.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, I didn't deal this deck. This is what I have, and the Senate knows exactly what I have. So they can talk and bluster and all that stuff, but they know that. So I got no margin.
Look, the framework is going to stay around the same. The other thing that American public doesn't quite understand, the basis in which we're doing this reconciliation, you can't write any bill that you want.
Exactly.
You can't go. So you got to deal with the Senate rules, which always drove us crazy, the Byrd rule.
Which says you cannot add anything on that does not directly affect the budget to do these.
So there's things you say, well, why don't you do this? You don't have the ability to do that.
Right. So who's in the Senate is going to actually have enough sway to get what he or she wants? Who do you see that? And it will it be about Medicaid? Will they do anything with Medicaid? Will they get rid of SALT?
No, they will not get rid of SALT. Will they try to change the number?
Will it go to 30?
They'll try to do.
What about Medicaid? Will they try and get more? Will Susan Collins try and get less? Josh Hawley.
No, they'll try, but it's good. The way the framework it is today is how it's going to end up.
How horrible is this bill in your view in terms of deficit?
Look, I am concerned not this bill, because
I know
the real drivers are not being talked about in this.
Right.
And this is the greatest threat to America. I mean, I tried to get President Biden, to really go after the big drivers, and let's do it together, because no one party can do it. Right? Everybody's got to be in this together. And if you ignore it, it's going to hit a wall.
Social Security and Medicare.
Yes.
The Republicans
but you want to
protect that.
You want to protect those for the future. And if you don't do something now, they won't be around.
Okay, so is there ever a chance of bipartisanship taking place and actually getting to that?
Washington works better with a deadline and when they see the public's there. No one's out educating the public, so you can't go in and change it and survive. I've always said the way we dealt after the Soviet Union collapsed with a BRAC, a base realignment and closure, where you have a commission that puts something together, and then it comes to the House and the Senate, no amendments, you vote it up and vote it down. That is the best way. Structure dictates behavior. And if they think they're just going to move it through a committee and then take it to the floor, who's ever in the minority is going to fight it.
Well, there is no political leader who who says, okay, this is what we're going to do because the American public doesn't want it.
No one has gotten elected to office saying, I'm going to get elected because I'm going to cut.
We've gotten more and more populist. I mean, look at the things that are in this bill, not just extending the tax cuts, but then doing all kinds of new tax cuts. No taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime.
No taxes on tips. So someone pays tax and then comes and gives it to someone who doesn't.
Who doesn't pay tax. I mean, these are populist giveaways that are designed to... And by the way, when you actually talk to servers, it's probably not going to matter that much because this is just on tips that are paid in cash, not electronically, and most people get all of their tips electronically right now. So these are giveaways. Same thing with
this isn't going to swell the debt. The real drivers of the debt, you've got to have a real discussion about.
Hey, what can you give me? And that's why I will vote for you.
How do we get back to pre-pandemic spending levels without doing what Ron... Or do you think that there'll be subsequent bills that address things like that? Because this is barely... What would you crow about 1.6 trillion on... What do we spend, 80 trillion or something? So this is 1.6 we're cutting.
If you look at the debt ceiling, I had to pass the debt ceiling with only 5 majority in the House, pretty much where they are today. Democrats controlled the Senate, and the Democrats controlled the White House, and we got $2 trillion in cut. We got work requirements.
Then why should we be happy with this? And so you're not going to say that. You're just going to smile.
Look, I would hope when you had all 3 majorities, you could do big things.
But they got to get reelected, half of them in 2 years. That's the problem.
Like anything, you've got to win the argument before you can win the vote. Margaret Thatcher told us that. And you've got to have a campaign that is warning. I think the bond market is waking people up. The debt on interest is what you're paying more than defense.
Treasury Secretary Jack Lew came in and said, oh, my God, we're digging because you got to stop digging $3 trillion. I mean, do you know if the Green New Deal, if cinema and if those do you know what they would have blown out in the last bit, but didn't hear a peep out of them for that. But now this latest $3 trillion is going to end the world. But it's not good to add $3 trillion. Nobody is happy about it.
No.
Do you think growth brings that number down? Do you really believe that growth can make that CBO number way too high?
Yeah, I think we're going to get more growth than what the CBO is saying right now. But is it enough to take care of our debt? No, because they're not able to deal with the drivers of the debt.
So we're stuck
until we have this discussion.
To get this 2017 permanent, we need to do this.
You have to.
No matter what happens, even though it's not perfect. Is it? They say, don't sacrifice the perfect or the good for the perfect.
Yeah.
Reagan won at 80%. We're not getting anywhere near 80%.
No.
What are we getting? 51% of what we need?
No, but what you're going to get in the basis of going forward, you get the ability to know what the tax system's going to be permanently. Okay. That's a positive.
Until the next Democratic administration?
No, because it's locked in.
Okay.
What else are you watching in Washington right now? What else is coming around the edges with the trade talks, the progress we're making, the comments from both Treasury Secretary Bessent yesterday and the president that, hey, maybe we will extend these deadlines beyond July 8th or July 9th?
Look, if I was sitting in the House today, I would build on something that I created before, the Select Committee on China. If these trade talks told us anything, China has certain leverages over us. That's why we created. We became too dependent upon them, right? And critical minerals is a very strong leverage. So legislatively, we have the ability to deal with critical minerals, but we wall ourselves off to new mines and others. I would speed that process up to take away any leverage that China has over us.
By the way, China is trying to work on taking our leverage away from us. Our leverage is we have better semiconductors. Yeah. They're working really hard to try and catch us on that front.
Yeah, and their form of government, they can do it more rapidly than we can.
Yeah.
So this should be an American position. And I tell you, the Select Committee on China is very bipartisan. They look at these type of things together. Anything that China has that we're dependent upon, medical supply. But they control 90% of critical minerals, but 95% of the processing. So even if we open up a mine, we're going to have to send it to them to process. This should be a national concern, like almost you're in a war. You should focus on this and waive any problems that we have.